We are picking up where we left off yesterday with comparing irrational numbers, and we're going to start off with a video. Woot woot. Maybe. There we go.
Compare the square root of 32 and the number 5.51326 and so on. Plot each number at its approximate location on a number line. A useful strategy for this problem is to look for relationships. To compare irrational numbers and locate them on a number line, you can use their rational approximations. The first step is to approximate the square root of 32 by using perfect squares. 32 is between the perfect squares 25 and 36. This means that the square root of 32 is between the square root of 25 and the square root of 36. So we know that the square root of 32 is between the whole numbers 5 and 6. On the number line, the square root of 32 is located somewhere between 5 and 6. How can you find a better approximation of the square root of 32?
All right, so far I like everything that's going on here. We've got, you really need to be able to do that first part where she puts the square root of 32 in between two perfect square numbers. So you need to be able to look at like the number 32 and think, okay, the next perfect square number is 36 and the one before it is 25. And so, you need to be able to do that. And then this part here, even where we're trying to get it a little bit closer, like it's good to know it's between 5 and 6, but can I narrow it down a little bit? How would I decide, is it closer to 5 or is it closer to 6? Emery?
Well, you would find out, is 36 closer to 25, or is 32 closer to 36 or 25?
There you go. So 32, when I think about where that's at compared to the two square numbers, 32 is closer to 36 than it is to 25. So from 32 to 36 would be 4, but from 32 to 25 would be 7, right? So 32 is closer to 36. That means that the square root of 32 is going to be closer to 6. That's where I want you to be able to do. Without a calculator, being able to reason that out, do that on a piece of paper, draw we'll use number lines like this kind of as a tool to help us do some of that. All of the stuff that she's done so far, I want you to be able to do, okay? Now let's see where we go from here.
You can find a better approximation of the square root of 32 by using decimals. For example, 5 and 5/10 squared is equal to 30 and 25/100, which is less than 32. 5 and 6/10 squared is equal to 31 and 36/100, which is also less than 32. 5 and 7/10 squared is equal to 32 and 49/100, which is greater than 32. The squares of these decimals show that the square root of 32 is between 5 and 6/10 and 5 and 7/10.
Okay, so here's where I'm going to go a little bit different from what the book does, because at this point, once we get to where they want us to start narrowing it down even closer by multiplying these decimals like this, that's when we're going to break out a calculator, right? We're going to be using the calculator to multiply 5.5, to multiply 5 times 5.5, or 5.6 times 5.6. I can't do those in my head. I don't expect you to do those in your head. I'm not going to waste time doing them on paper when I got a calculator sitting next to me. So at this point, I'm not, it's good for you to understand why they're doing it and what the math is, but we're just going to not do this, because if you got a calculator, you might as well do what?
You can use it on the calculator.
You might as well figure out what the square root of 32 is as a decimal, right? So everything up to this first break they took, you need to be able to do without a calculator. After that, we're gonna use calculators, okay? So they're gonna wrap up this section, and don't get worried about this stuff if you're not understanding it or not getting it, because it's only up to this point that I want you to be able to do.
The next step is to approximate 5.51326 and so on as a rational number. Round the number to the nearest tenth, which is 5 5/10. Now we're ready to plot each approximation on a number line to compare the two numbers. 5.51326 and so on is approximately equal to 5 5/10. The square root of 32 is between 5 6/10 and 5 7/10. So plot the square root of 32 in the space between the two decimals. The number line shows that 5.51326 and so on is less than the square root of 32.
There you go. So we need to be able to put numbers in order like this, and put them on a number line to find their order like that. So when we get narrowed down to where we need to judge between decimals, that's where we use a calculator, okay? But we could have done this one without a calculator, because we knew 32 was more than 5.5, right? Because we knew it was gonna be higher than that. So we could have done it without actually doing this middle step here. And that's what I want us to be able to do, okay? All right, let's look at last couple of examples, and then we'll start on our assignment. So compare and order the numbers below. Compare and order the numbers below. And we want to be able, and you got this, I think this goes in your book, right? Okay, yeah, you've got all this information. So they walk you through this one, and they do kind of the same process with some of these numbers that they've done on the video. But like pi squared, that's our first number, pi squared, how are we gonna do that? I'm not gonna do that without a calculator. I don't know how to square pi without a calculator. So we would have used a calculator to multiply it out. 9.5 is 9.5, that should have been easy. We know what 9.8 is, 9.5 repeating, that's easy. And then square root of 94. What two perfect squares is that between? You guys need to know the perfect squares. And if you don't know them, you need to make a list of them. Like we did that, I did that with some students second hour. Get out a note card, write it down in your book, you get the list of perfect squares. Oops, that was the wrong button. Sorry. All right. List of perfect squares. You would have 1 times 1 equals 1. That's a perfect square. What would be next? 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. You need to have those up to 10 times 10. You need to know those perfect squares. Okay, so make yourself a list. I don't need to finish the list for you. You can do that, right? But if you're having trouble thinking of what the perfect squares are, then write a list out where you can look at it. And then when you get down towards the bottom, you'll have 9 times 9 is 81, and you'll have 10 times 10 is 100, right? Okay, so square root of 94. 94 is in between 81 and 100. Now, which one is it closer to? Is 94 closer to 81 or is it closer to 100?
It's closer to 100.
It's closer to 100. That means the square root of 94 is going to be closer to 10 than it is to 9. All right? Now, that's what I want you to be able to do. Then use calculator, see what the square root of 94 is. It's going to be, they're going to round that to 9.7. And so that helps us put it on the number line where stuff goes, okay? You with me? I'm not asking you to do, I'm asking you to do the easy part of this lesson, and I'm kind of chopping off the harder part of it, and you just need to be able to do it, all right? So let's look at the last example they have. This should be at the bottom of page, what, 24? Bottom page, where are we at?
We're on
23, bottom page 23, my bad, okay. Bottom page 23, this is for just kind of a sample problem, and on my screen I can drag the little things around after we do some figuring on it. So one thing they do different here, they're gonna include some negative numbers in this example. What does that do to us? Well,
It's negative now. So
Negative-
Go
we-
backwards with those big numbers.
yeah, with negative numbers, you gotta think backwards. So as you move further left, negative, the numbers get bigger, right?
Yeah.
But really they get smaller as you
Yeah.
move left. So they're bigger integers, but they're smaller values. And so what is the smallest number on this list?
Negative 2.5.
Try again.
Negative 3.9.
Negative 3.9, okay. So negative 3.9, I would drag that to about right there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, really close to negative 4. What's the next one?
Negative 2.5.
Negative 2.5 is gonna be in between negative 2 and negative 3.
Yeah.
So about right at halfway there, okay? Now I've got 3 positive numbers, so let's think about where they go. So we know what 2, and I can put these on the line. Where does 2 and 1/4 go?
Like
it goes 2
one,
and like 3.
like
Okay.
1/4, 2, 3.
Yeah, so 2, they're about right there, okay? About right there. And where does 3.6 repeating?
A little past the halfway mark.
Little
Yeah.
past the halfway, if that's right about there, maybe. Okay. 2, 4 actually would go a little bit to that side because those should be 6, 8. Yeah, those should be. All right. Anyway, should be right there. And then we just got to decide where the square root of 11 goes. So what are my 2 perfect squares above and below 11?
9, 3, 3, 4, 4.
3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. So is 11 closer to 9 or is it closer to 16?
16. 16. 9.
It's closer to 9. So it's going to be closer to 3 than it is to 4. Yes? So that tells us where it goes in this list. It goes to the left of 3.6. It's going to be in there somewhere. All right? As long as it's to the left of 3.6 repeating, we're good. All right? So, guys, that's what you need to be able to do. Make a number line and put each individual number onto the number line. I could put 2 1/4 onto the number line before I even worried about figuring out what square root of 11 was, right? I didn't have to get jumbled up and trying to think about each number together. I just think about each number individually and put it on the number line. So number lines are going to be your friend on this assignment as they have you put some numbers in order. Go ahead and just draw you a simple number line out, and it doesn't have to have 50,000 numbers on it. It just has to have enough room on the line to be able to put the numbers they're asking for, okay, and get them into the right order. So that's what you're doing. What are the page numbers? 25 and 26.
What? Oh.
24 is like the wrap up and some sample problems. 25 and 26 is the assignment.
If we didn't finish this homework.
Is this due tomorrow?
Due tomorrow for those that are here. We'll probably spend a little time going. I'll take questions over it. And then we will have some sort of an online deal. So those that are not here tomorrow, check on Google Classroom, check on Savvis Easy Bridge. There'll be something for you to do over the weekend. Okay?
Mr. Fish.
Hold on just a second.